made it to the end of the first week, and we are ready to understand the very first step of every Armor Down mindfulness practice or every Armor Down mindfulness meditation. So let's see where we've come, and then we'll get into this first step fully. So, the very first place that we kind of want to put our focus is on the relationship between marksmanship and mindfulness. The reason for this is that there's still a lot of kind of stigma around mindfulness and stigma around mental health in general. How does it relate to me? Why is it useful, et cetera, et cetera? How do I even do it? What is mental health? Well, the reason why we've connected the two practices, mindfulness and marksmanship, is that to be a marksman, which all veterans mostly are well trained marksmen. So to be a marksman, you have to be good at things like being present, knowing what's going on with the firearm, not just itself, but what's around it. And there are four rules. There are these four fundamental rules. And everybody knows these rules. Lottie-dottie, everybody. And so what we've done is we've taken this first safety rule, which is always assume the weapon is loaded, and use that as the guiding principle for establishing a location to train. Establishing this kind of essence of safety, we went over how you assess safety, which is through your senses. You're not assessing safety in the past. You're not assessing safety in the future. You're assessing safety right now. How do you do that? You do it with your senses. So we did that on Tuesday. On Wednesday, we talked about how the body responds to safety. And what we described on Wednesday was that the body has kind of two sides to what's its kind of central systems. So it's the central nervous system. One side is called the sympathetic side. That kind of takes you up, revs you up. The other side is called the parasympathetic side, which kind of settles you down. So when you feel safe, there's a kind of a balance, but it's more lean towards parasympathetic. There's a quiet, what's called a relaxation response that we try to trigger. On Thursday, we talked about what happens to the brain when you're safe. And we talked about the way your thinking shifts from the lizard brain, which is back here, to up here, the prefrontal cortex, which deals with bigger stuff, deals with executive function. Kind of makes what makes humans unique from the rest of the animal kingdom. We also talked about the vagus nerve and its relationship to your face. So part of this coming into safety, coming into calm, is that you're creating a lot of communication. You're creating a lot of back and forth, reinforcing the fact that where you are is comfortable and safe. And lastly, I've asked you all week to find a location in your house that is feels safe for you. Okay, and hopefully you've come to that conclusion. You've got a place in your house that feels safe for you, and you're going to use it as your place to train. So let's look at the training itself. So I've got both our tools up here. Got the firearm, which you've seen already. Let's see, get this straight. But now I've also got what's called a singing bell. So what you'll see is this is just a bowl, singing bell, singing bowl. This is just a bowl. This one's made of aluminum. Lots of them are made of copper. We're going to introduce that tool. And then, of course, because the firearm's here, let's just go over the first safety step. This will be for you warriors that don't know much about mindfulness. This will be for you mindfulness practitioners that don't know much about firearms. So try to keep it balanced, right? Something for everybody. Okay, so first rule is you always assume the weapon's loaded. So you never walk up to a weapon like, oh, look at this, it's awesome, look, yay. Never do that. Never, ever, 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 ever. And never, ever happens. You always assume it's loaded because safety is the number one priority. Safety is everything. Once you assess something safe, then you can start to interact with it. But before you assess that, you can't do any of this. So you always approach a firearm as though it's loaded. You bring it into your workstation, which is like a beach ball that's like if you were holding a beach ball, this would be your workstation. Then you check the weapon, see if it's loaded. You take the magazine out, and then you open the slide, you rack it, and you actually look inside the barrel, you look down in the chamber, and then you even feel, okay? Now, the reason why you do this is you make double sure that this weapon is absolutely safe. And how do you know it's safe? You checked it, your senses, okay? So, when it comes to the first part, step one of an armor down mindfulness practice, okay? Whether it's armor down mindfulness just in the car, or if it's armor down mindfulness meditation, which is what we're going to ultimately be doing fully by the end of January, it always starts the same way, always. And it starts with what we call first bell. So when you see me train, I'll always begin with first bell. And so what I'll do is I'll bring it to the bell like this, and I'll go. Sight, sound, taste, touch, smell. What is in your direct experience? What shows up? Maybe it's light and shadow if you got your eyes open, you're looking around. Maybe it's what you hear. You know, the drip of a pipe somewhere, the hum of a fan, the sound of a bird, the tap 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 of an animal walking through the house, a dog walking through the house. Maybe you hear quiet. You see how that works? It accomplishes a couple things. First step, first bell. First is it what we call tames the mind, which is bring the mind into the present moment. The present moment is what's happening right now. It's not in the past, it's not in the future. This is really important. This is really important, especially for PTSD sufferers, because if you have PTSD, it's hard to actually be in the present moment. You're always assessing threat, and it's not just threat that's happening, could happen right now, but it's also a threat that's happening in the past. And the problem with that is, like we talked about with the brain, is that if you're thinking about threat, you're actually becoming activated. So when you focus on the present moment and you bring your focus fully into now and assess the situation with your senses, you're bringing your mind into the present moment, but you're also assessing safety. It's like you're not assessing safety of this in the past or the future. You're assessing safety right now. You're using your senses to interact with this firearm right now. There's no future and past here. There's only right now. This is what makes marksmanship such a present moment thing. It's interacting right now. If you don't interact with it right now, it becomes deadly dangerous. So for the marksman, that's obvious. But in the context of mindfulness, it may not seem so obvious. That's why first bell is such an important step. You start the process. You start to armor down at first bell. You connect to the moment. Well, how do I know it's safe? You listen. You look. You smell. You taste. You feel. And so if your mind is like, no, it could be this, could be that, you're like, no, look. There's nothing here, mind. Well, let's focus on right now. And then you give the mind something to do. You give the mind something to do. Mind, what do you hear? Well, why would I? What? Mind, the mind's trying to create safety. That's its job, right? It's trying to assess. Mind, come on. Look. Mind, listen. Mind, smell. What do you smell, mind? It's a participation. And you're basically convincing your mind to stay focused here and that, look, everything's cool. And so when that happens, you get what's called a relaxation response, and you can start to settle in, okay? So first bell is all about safety, all about settling in, all about beginning the process. So real quick, we'll just recap one more time. The first rule of marksmanship is always assume the weapon's loaded, safety first, okay? First bell is all about using your senses to establish safety. Both take place in the present moment. One's interacting with a firearm, the other is interacting with the actual moment itself through your senses. The senses show you what's going on in the present moment, and your senses are what you can rely on to assess safety. So, from there, next week, we're going to go into rule number 2. Rule number 2 is always or never point the weapon at anything unless you intend to shoot it, which means that it's engagement with the body. So pointing the weapon means that you grab the weapon, you're interacting with the weapon, and you're making it a part of your body by pointing, right? And so you're having to make sure that the barrel is not pointing at anything unless you want to shoot it. Or we're taking that for the mindfulness practice as the guiding principle. We're saying that the body has to be something that you engage with for bell tube. So next week, we're going to be going over the body. This will include, by the end, this will include actually using the space that you have for yourself. This is going to be my space. Just on the floor in the garage. We'll start training from the space that we actually picked for ourselves. So I won't be at the table anymore. I'll be back here. So we'll be training from the space that we picked for ourselves. And we'll be going over how to sit, okay? The right way to sit. And the right way to sit is not me telling you the right way. The right way to sit is you figuring out through, guess what? Your senses, how you feel. So we're going to go through that next week. We'll also talk a little bit about the body. We're going to talk about a guy, an author. His name is Dr. Bressel van der Kolk. We'll talk about him. But it's been a good first week. It's been a significant week, right? Damn near every time I'm doing this, there's something wild going on. So, par for the course. But we're done for the day. We're done for the week. Good job if you've been watching all the way through. All these videos are going to be compiled and shortened in an edited fashion, so they don't have the me in your face turning the camera on and off and stuff like that. If you own an Armor Down meditation cushion, you'll get that for free. If you don't own an Armor Down meditation cushion, I'm gonna ask you to pay for it. So I'm gonna put it behind a firewall. So that'll go out to your cushion. I don't know, hopefully before Monday. I'm still figuring out the editing process. But that's really it. It's been awesome interacting with people. I've got 2 warriors yesterday. Oh man, it's just the best. One Air Force guy, he's a badass motherfucker, man. This dude was so cool. Another guy was a Marine. He was cool. Just really, really fun. And it's just the best part. So if you don't have a meditation cushion and you don't have the ability to buy one, of course if you can buy one, buy one. But if you don't have the ability to buy one, apply for one. And you're going to end up getting a phone call from me, and we'll get to talk and chat, and then I'll send you a meditation cushion, depending on our donors and stuff. So, yeah, all right, I'm rambling, as I usually do, but it's been a pleasure this week. It's been awesome. Let's keep it up. Let's keep learning how to armor down. All right, y'all. See you on Monday.